इसके लिए हम महाविद्यालय परिवार इनके प्रति आभारी हैं. Now I will introduce you to the speaker, Mr. Uday Shankar Dutt. Mr. Uday Shankar Dutt joined the Indian Police Service in 1976 and was allotted the Bihar cadre. He has worked as District Superintendent of Police in 4 districts, Patna, Chhapra, Darbhanga, and Rohtas. He was rewarded for his contribution in prevention and detection of crime, maintenance of law and order, police welfare, training, and modernization. While with the state government, he has been posted as Special Secretary Home, Inspector General of Police, Wireless, and Director General, Home Guards and Fire Services, Bihar. On being selected by the Central Bureau of Investigation, he proceeded on deputation to the Union government, where he spent 14 years supervising investigation of several cases of bribery, corruption, and financial frauds. Notable amongst these were the Harshad Mehta Bank and stock market scam, MMTC fraud of mercantilizing trade transactions, initial public offer IPO scam. To name a few, he shared the expertise that he had developed while investigating economic crimes by regularly contributing articles to the CBI Bulletin. An in-house publication, he wrote on bank scam cases, white-collar crime, one-time settlement of outstanding loans, subprime crisis, and ethics and corruption in corporate governance. A sought-after speaker, he has delivered lectures on the aforesaid topics at several training centers and institutions. He continues to do so. On superannuation from the Indian Police Service, his services were sought by several organizations. He became member of the advisory board on bank, commercial, and financial frauds of the Reserve Bank of India, member of the committee of experts constituted by the Central Vigilance Commission and Government of India to examine proposals of ministries, departments, organizations for scrutiny of eastern coalfields, to oversee the Integrity Pact program, and independent director in Edelweiss Housing Finance Limited and Edelweiss Agri Chain Value Limited. As a strategic advisor to GTL Infrastructure Limited and affiliates, he made policies for compliance and corruption-free operation of telecom towers. Since October 2012, he is an advisor with Ernst & Young, Gurugram. In that capacity, he has worked on several projects pertaining to investigation of bribery, corruption, and financial frauds in corporates and banks. He has conducted master classes across the country for corporates on the Whistleblowing Act, Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act, the Companies Act, Awareness of Law and Police Procedures. Dutt is an acknowledged leader in making policies, identifying red flags, and early warning signals of risk frauds. He has a long experience and specialized skill sets in investigation of white-collar crimes. He's a gold medalist in both BSc and MSc honors in geology from Punjab University, Chandigarh. He was the best outdoor probationer at the National Police Academy. He is the recipient of Indian Police Medal for Meritorious Service and President's Police Medal for Distinguished Service. और इतने अच्छे CV के व्यक्ति को मैंने आपके बीच आज प्रस्तुत किया है, इसलिए आप इसका पूरा इनसे आप लाभान्वित हों. Now over to Mr. K.K. Tiwari, Principal.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
स्टूडेंट लोग आप लोग अपने आप को म्यूट कीजिए.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Once again, very happy good morning. Honorable President, Sri S.K. Misra, sir. Honorable Chief Guest, Sri Uday Shankar Dutt, Senior IPS of the today's program. Respected Madam Secretary, Dr. Srimati Ujjwala Misra, Sri Chand Kumar, sir. respectable director, distinguished faculty members of the college, and our dear students. This is signing moment for us to organize a webinar titled as The Emerging Trends of Financial Fraud, a prominent burning issue of today. First of all, I extend my sincere thanks to the Madam Secretary who managed to arrange such inspiring and academic program. We are grateful to our chief guest who is pleased to address us, giving his valuable time. We know the corruption is a national stigma and a global phenomenon, and its roots are so deeply and firmly entrenched in our field, in all fields, and too tough to uproot it with weak weapons. People have become accustomed, having heard in countless ways and means with the media exposing fresh cases on a routine basis. The nexus among politicians, bureaucrats, and criminals is so well established that all anti-corruption raids, suspensions, indictions end as dead causes. High-profile people are aware that they have nothing to fear, and fear of harassment, the common people and the aggrieved people cannot dare to raise their voice against the wrongdoers. All the measures, scams like sand kits, fodder, urea, telecom, buffers, 2G spectrum, coal tar, Commonwealth games, etc. go towards the unending names, claiming millions and billions of the unexpected and unthinkable quantity of amounts. The new trend of economic offense affects the country's economy, creates a stumbling block to the development, and erodes the credibility of the government. Excessive regulations, complicated tax and licensing systems, opaque bureaucracy, and lack of transparent laws are the major causes of corruptions. The new trend is involved in the public distribution system, PDS, Manrega, midday meal, National Rural Health Mission, rampant in real estate and mining sectors, and academic and specialized professional field are the just new trends. We can say it has strongly pervaded the medical professions, unfortunately in judiciary and sports also. Money is playing a role everywhere. These unhealthy trends must be stopped point blank through passing forwarding laws which can be redefine our values. We hope our chief guest shall focus on it. Even if we have a long way to go for a vibrant and healthy India, the future looks promising and optimistic. Thanks a lot. I hope we would be highly beneficial on the address of our honorable chief guest. Thanks.
Okay, sir. Hello. हेलो
अजीत जी आवाज कहाँ से आ रही है? उनको ये कीजिए, म्यूट कीजिए.
Moving on, I cordially invite the chief guest speaker of this lecture session, Senior IPS Officer, Honorable Mr. Uday Shankar Dutt.
Yeah, the moment you load the PPT, I'll start, Ajit. Well, till the time the PPT is loaded, I would thank Dr. Mishra and the others for the very kind introductory remarks and for affording me this opportunity to speak to all the young students of the prestigious SKJ Law College in Muzaffarpur. I have a special bonding with Muzaffarpur because that is the place where I came first to Bihar and began my field training. under the leadership of the then SP, Mr. Anil Kumar Pandey, who's unfortunately no more, and the DIG was Mr. N.N. Singh. They both treated me like a part of the family, and that is what endeared me to Bihar. And I have those very, very close relationships with my officers and friends till date. Now, having worked in the CBI and continuing to work in the financial fraud sector, I'm introducing all of you to this subject of emerging trends of financial frauds, which affects each one of us in our day-to-day lives. And the intent of the study is not only to teach you the sections of law, but the real differentiators between a good lawyer and a very, very successful lawyer and a person who's not really up to the mark is the fact that he develops skill sets and domain knowledge outside the purview of just the sections of law. Everybody can read and cram the sections of law, but what is really necessary is knowing a bit of background. Next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll begin with this famous fraud triangle developed by Donald Cressy in the 1950s, relevant even today. It explains very clearly who commits fraud and why. The defendants who are defending the accused persons, as well as the prosecutors who are arguing the case on behalf of the police or the investigating agencies, need to have this background knowledge. You know, the high risk factors, see the apex, 3 apexes of the triangle. Motivation. You know, the motivating factor is that, you know, I am doing it for the betterment of my staff. What if everybody gains? You know, this is the kind of motivation where he's becoming very benevolent to himself as well as his colleagues. And the person who commits the fraud must have the opportunity, meaning thereby that he is very intelligent, he has the domain knowledge, and he is in a position of power to mold the existing policies and procedures of the organizations. And the third apex is the rationalization part. He rationalizes his actions by saying, it hurts no one. The company is not losing, the government is not losing. I'm just taking money, like borrowing from some source, multiplying it, returning it to the system. So this is how, you know, with the 3 corners, motivation, opportunity, and rationalization, he justifies the commission of the fraud. And when, of course, the forces that he unleashes go beyond his control, that's the time when the bubble bursts and the fraud is reported. Next, please. This is a very interesting workplace deviance model, which was devised by the Association, ACFE, Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. Startling reality. Only 10% of the employees are totally honest, 10% totally dishonest, which by interpretation means that 80% of the employees are capable of being influenced to be either honest or dishonest. And the second corollary is 90% of all employees are capable of fraud and dishonesty. Now, this is the challenge before you. The next slide, please.
अजीत जी
सुबह में आप 7 बजे वहां पहुंच जाइए तब मिल लीजिए।
अजीत जी
हेलो,
बहुत आवाज आ रही है, उधर म्यूट कीजिए।
Now, you know, when you become lawyers, you will also come across these fraudsters who are larger than life. They are the ones, you know, who would try to bog you down with their prowess. They're dominant leaders like Bernie Ebbers, WorldCom, Enron, both perpetuated frauds that led to the corporate collapse. The lawyers also were cowed down, that what they're saying is right. This is something which right from your initial stages you must inculcate. Don't be carried away by dominant leaders, flamboyant entrepreneurs like Harshad Mehta, Ramalinga Raju, or by charismatic people, And when they talk about hi-fi fundas, which you do not understand, don't be impressed by what they're saying. Try to find out what they're saying. Like, for example, those in authoritative position, Bernard Madoff, for example, had come out with white-collar strikes. Now, nobody knew what is white-collar strikes, and nobody bothered to find out what are the white-collar strikes. And he duped 11 investors of $26 billion. Now, 11 investors, $26 billion, they are not only moneyed people, but they are no fools who can be taken for a ride. And just because nobody bothered to find out what is a collar strike, Madoff succeeded for about 10, 12 years before the bubble burst. So as budding lawyers, when you have a brief to discuss with the client, no matter how big or mighty he may be, do not be cowed down by his overwhelming personality. And don't try to pretend that you understand and know everything. No way. Even after 45 years of work in the financial sector and others subjects of policing, one cannot claim to be perfect or a Mr. Know-all. There's still so much to learn, right? Next slide, please. Now, what does the fraudster's profile look like? When you're dealing with clients, here is where, your antenna should go up. Between 31 to 45 years, and the most prolific age is between 41 to 45 years for commission of frauds. The longer a tenure on one table, the higher are the chances of fraud. That is why in Bihar also you will see that the SPs would be changed every 2 years, 3 years. That is the principle on which this fraud is based, because familiarity breeds not only contempt, but it ushers in a certain amount of complacency, and that tends you to become a little more corrupt. Of course, many of us will not agree with it that the frauds are committed more by men than women. It may be true a little while ago, but now with the women also coming in the larger sector, the driving force, as I showed in the fraud triangle, is the opportunity. Once you are in a position of power, no matter whether you're a man or a woman, the opportunity and the risk of fraud rises very high. The higher the level of education, the greater the value of losses. Now, why we say that is because the collapse of the largest sectors, WorldCom, Enron, Lehman Brothers, the Barings Bank, which was the oldest bank in the world, collapsed because the CEOs, the chief executive officers, chief operating officers who were heading these organizations were very powerful, very educated, they did things, and they structured the financial transactions in a manner that no one understood. And the whole system started believing them and going with them in blind faith. In fact, they gave up their second line of defense, their third line of defense. All was sacrificed in a blind trust. That should never happen. That is what you as lawyers also must make sure, that you don't blindly trust somebody who comes to you. Verify the facts and the things for yourself. Next slide, please. You see now, this is a typical slide where anybody who commits fraud feels that it can never happen to me. Oh, but that person was caught with bribery, corruption, and fraud. You know, this man who's buried his head in the sand says, oh, that fellow was a fool. I am very educated, very wise. I can never be caught. Now you are living in a fool's paradise if you think that way. Next slide, please. Now, this is professional skepticism. I want to, you know, some of you have just started your so-called education in the law college with just about 1.5 months, 2 months you put in. I would like to warn you right from day one that a lawyer's job, like any other professional job, is to start from the negative to the positive. Don't just give a cursory look at the documents brought by the clients and say, oh, everything is fine. Right? If you do that, you are in for very serious trouble. Now, these two pictures, just to exemplify my point, I have brought down these pictures. If you see the left one, the moment you just look at it, it looks like a face of a lady, perhaps. But if you start following from the left side, where the eyes are, you can read the word L. Then it is I. And if you go down towards the right hand side, it is A. And then last word, which is the chin, is R.
God.
So this figure shows you, instead of a face, it shows you the word liar. I hope now, after my telling you, all of you, if you tilt your neck a little bit and read from the left to the right, you will be able to read the word liar. Now, that is what is professional skepticism. That is what is close examination of documents. Each one of you has to do that very thoroughly during your professional career. The next one is victory. You know, you may look at a document and, oh, jump to conclusion, victory, I'm won. But if you see between V and I, you can discern the alphabet D. Between I and E, you can discern the alphabet E. Between T and O is another another E. Within R is the letter A, and R and Y is T. So it is D, E, F, E, A, T. That's what happens when you don't examine documents properly and you jump to conclusions. Never do that. I'm more than the sections of law. I'm trying to build the awareness and make this a second habit with you right from the moment you start. Don't just look at a section of law or the provisions with a cursory look. Even today, if you are talking about farm laws, you know, most of us discuss without going through the provisions of the law. That is something which no good professional should do. Next slide, please. Now, what are the typical frauds in financing? You know, if you see diversion of funds, you see Nirav Modi, Malia, anyone, they'll take loans, 9,000 crores, and they will divert it for purposes other than those for which the loans were sanctioned. This is the single largest factor. Diversion of funds is the single largest factor for the loans becoming sticky or going bad, repayments being defaulted, and what you eventually call an NPA, which is a non-performing asset. And the losses have to be borne by the banks. And since they have to do the provisioning also, the bank's development opportunities, they suffer. Bribery and corruption doesn't need any explanation. Collateral frauds. You know, whenever you take a loan, you got to give a collateral security. The title deeds are false, fictitious, or information is suppressed. There may be joint owners of the property, that is suppressed. And when it comes to securitization or auctioning of that property, you find that you are landed up with a dud and nothing can happen. And then, of course, all the assets which you have, mismanagement, various types. I will not go into the details of these because this is the course of a separate lecture altogether. Next slide, please. Which are the most fraud-prone financial sectors? You know, banks, followed by insurance, not Non-banking financial companies and mutual fund companies account for 63% of the frauds in the financial sector. And states lose about 5% of its revenue to fraud, which translates into 38 billion rupees annually. This is the figure from the, the RBI, the latest figure goes that globally we are losing in trillions of dollars. The other main vulnerable fraud areas are real estate, transport, telecom, technology. Technology includes cybercrime, digital frauds, healthcare, consumer goods, and mining. Now, in the introductory remarks, Manrega, and they were talked about Manrega and all that. I'd bring it within the ambit of certain schemes which the government runs, right? And separately, we have not dealt with it because these schemes will form a very, very, very minuscule percentage of the total frauds in the financial sector that take place within the country as well as globally. Next slide, please. These are the top categories of fraud based on the amount involved in fraud. Loans and advances, corporate loans. Ultimately, whether it is in the farm laws or something, everybody is hearing that so-and-so corporate is buying large chunks of land. After all, these chunks of land that are bought are again from loans from banks. Then the banks does not give loans for acquiring property or buying land. But that is the diversion and every likelihood of those loans becoming sticky. Then there are these letters of credit and bank guarantees. Wherever you have the time, know about it. This is a matter of a full subject, to talk about letters of credit and bank guarantees. Suffice to say that one bank guarantees the other bank that in case of default, I shall bear the loss. So if false bank guarantees or letters of credits are issued, the losses devolve on the bank. And that's the scheme which the defaulters use. Nirav Modi's case, what they talk about letter of intent, basically falls within that category. It has devolved, the liabilities have devolved on the Punjab National Bank. Bill purchase, bill discounting, fictitious bills. You prepare false bills which come within the category of forgery. Later on in the slide, I'll show you what offense is forgery. You as lawyers, if you're in the corporate sector, if you are in the financial sector, this is a very important challenge, bill purchase and bill discounting facility. These are all fictitious bills raised mostly from related party transactions and discounting facilities fraudulently obtained from the bank. And when the fraud goes very high, you have the collapse like the Barings Bank, or in India, the Lakshmi Vilas Bank. Housing loans, another very important area of fraud. You're making a hotel and you're showing that you're making a multi-storied complex with flats, and you bring in allotment letters to people for allotment of flats. And nobody goes and bothers to verify that's not a house, it's a hotel or a resort. And obviously the loans have to become sticky. You see, then, of course, the frauds in the current savings account. And we'll deal with it slowly. Credit card frauds. Each one of us is very familiar with this. I'll just touch, because credit card again is a matter of a full lecture. So because of paucity of time, we can't go into the nitty-gritties of this kind of fraud. In fact, that's not the purpose. As I said, I want to just introduce you to the subject. But I'll briefly touch upon credit card in the next slides. Next slide, please. Now, the emphasis should be on preventing frauds. That is far more cost effective, because once a fraud is reported, there are very, very few chances of its recovery. And employee fraud is a very, very big challenge. No matter what organization it is, I'll come to the slides later on. Employee fraud is one of the biggest challenges before the country. Corruption. Next slide, please. Just have a look to, you may be talking about, in fact, when I was in Bihar, I thought it's very corrupt. But when I came to the CBI, believe it or not, I thought that corruption in Bihar is on a very, very low scale, almost insignificant. When I saw corruption, now this is the scale of corruption. The total bribe paid each year by an adult urban Indian is nearly 6,30,000 crores, which translates into 6.3% of our GDP. 2,151% more than your health expenditure. 942% more than the education expenditure. 353% more than the defense budget. And 320% more than your income tax revenue. Imagine if this 6,30,000 crores was to be utilized in health, education, defense, and IT, it would change the very complexion of our country. That is what corruption does. Next slide, please. Now, this is a survey. There may be variations in percentages, but who do we bribe the most? As a police officer, one is ashamed to know that, yes, 30% to police for a verification report of passport. In fact, when I was Special Secretary Home, we tried to scrap off this system of police verification. One of your vice chancellors from Patna, when they went for police verification of a son who wanted a passport, imagine the vice chancellor. The constable had the gall to say, कि इस नाम का व्यक्ति इस पते पर नहीं रहता है. And obviously, he told us later that he wanted about $1,000, which he didn't get, and hence this false verification report. You have to, sometimes to prevent corruption, we've done away with this verification process now. That is what you have to do. You've got to find the right solutions for the problem and not just dwell upon the problem. If you try to prevent this corruption of every constable who goes for verification of a passport, you're like that man in the picture who has dug his head in the sand, and he's far from reality. He's blind to the reality, and that is not the solution to the problem. Then 25% traffic police to overlook violations. People say that the society gets the police that it deserves. Well, I like the person who has violated an offense to be punished. But when I do the violation myself, I will ring up 10 people to make sure that I don't pay the challan. And even if I get away from paying the challan, it will not stop me from further verifications down the line. Now, that is where the fabric of the society also has to improve. And please, you as youngsters, keep that in mind, because you will be upholders of the very important value systems of the criminal justice system prevailing in the country. You'll be a significant part of it, right? 15% for registration of property. Each one of you from the family would be knowing how difficult it is to register a property, how difficult it is to get a driving license, right? Now, these are certain things which should leave an indelible. I'm trying to make you aware of this so that as youngsters, it leaves an indelible mark on your mind. You keep these things uppermost in your mind, and at least you don't become guilty or fall a prey or a victim to these forms of corruption. Next slide, please. How does it impact our society? The World Bank has said that corruption is the twin foe of social and economic development. I've already said that if all that money which goes into the hands of the corrupt, if it is utilized for development, the whole complexion of the country and the world economy will change. Corruption is the single largest factor that has led to the downfall of many corporates, no matter how old and well established they may appear to be. It's surprising. You know, I have done in EY, Ernst & Young, my present assignment, investigation against certain CEOs who are earning 6 to 8 crores an annum. And yet they have committed a fraud of about 700, 800 crores. Reebok being one of those examples. Should be giving examples, but that is what comes off the cuff into my mind. What's it going to do with all that money? You know, there's, like Gandhi said, there's enough for man's need, but never enough for your greed. Even in the police department, there are many who feel that corruption is the way out to compensate for the low salaries. No, even that corruption will never be enough. It's a mindset that is important. If your mind is set to be able to live within your means, you'll not only be a happy man, you will be a far more respectable person and more at peace with yourself. You know, this exposes transparency, ethics and governance, and weak policies. This is also, now when you become lawyers, try to make sure that dispensation of justice somehow or the other increases. Right, now can we go to the next slide, please? You know, I don't want to go into the details of all sorts of crimes. I've given you about the corporate frauds, about overview of this thing. Very important at the moment is the cyber fraud and the digital fraud which is coming up. You know, many thousands and lakhs of people are falling prey to digital fraud. There are fraudsters who will pose as bank managers, insurance agencies, selling very rosy schemes, lotteries, everything. And they'll get your bank account number, they'll send you an OTP, and then ask you to give the digital details on the bank, on the reverse side of your debit card, and clean your account. And don't think, again, like that man whose head is buried in the sand, that he was a fool. It can never happen to me. An IAS officer from the Bihar cadre, after retirement, has been duped of about 50,000 rupees because he fell prey to it. He was not attentive or what. They do it in a wonderful manner. I would, in a lighter vein, suggest all of you to watch that serial, Jamtara. It's about Jharkhand, how a gang operates in duping people through phone calls. It's a must-see. It is true to life incidents also. And of course, even in Patna, your Domino's particularly, in Ernst & Young, we've done a case where the person had opened up a false website and selling franchisees to very hopeful aspirants without knowing that Jubilant Foods, which runs Domino's, does not give out franchisee to anyone. But that's why I'm saying lack of knowledge, ignorance may be bliss till you become a victim. And that is why it's not just enough to know the provisions of law, but to know the, to have a knowledge and a data bank with you. Now, credit card frauds, without going into the details, they can be fake cards. I won't go into the KYC details, know your customer and all. Skimming of your data, be very careful that you don't allow your cards to be skimmed through a fake machine. And phishing. Now, this is something which you should be very, very careful of. Creation of an email message or web pages, even on your WhatsApp and all. They fool users into submitting personal financial data or password, and they use a special software to clean up your accounts. Next slide, please. Some of the other examples are how they hack into the bank's website also and transfer data into the system with data readers. The technology and tools available are meant for a good cause, but they have a huge potential for misuse. Anybody who can go through the nitty-gritties of the technology available must do so. It's amazing. We have dealt with this in the financial frauds, and it's an eye-opener for us. There are cloning machines. There are youngsters who are in this, 14 to 16 years, college students like you who have entered, who get carried away by quick money. And everybody thinks that he'll not be caught. That man who's buried his head in the sand. Don't ruin your career before it has begun. Don't be carried away by pseudo bravado or pseudoism and fall into the trap of making quick money and a success of your life only by earning money through foul means. No, success in life is through a career, and a career is built through hard work, knowledge, and constant effort. Don't take any shortcuts. There is no shortcut to it, right? So these are the cloning ones, the cloning machines, and even companies, they are clever enough to hire a company for a day, open up about 700, 800 accounts. And these accounts are going all over the country, from the north to Cochin to Jamshedpur to Chavasa. That's how terror financing and all is happening, right? So these are the things that are leading to it. Now, to next section, please. Next slide, please. Now, just to give you, as I said, my intention was not to teach you the sections of law. That your college would, is reputed enough and very competent to do. But in all the financial frauds, the relevant sections that are applicable, I have tried to tabulate them in one slide. It is, to begin with, we have section 120B, which is criminal conspiracy, meeting of minds. You have another section of abetment also, right? But 120B is the one most used. Then you have a criminal breach of trust, which applies mainly to the public servants, like the bankers who have cheated the bank. Right? And of course, the companies also who made the bankers commit the cheating or the fraud for them. Cheating, as I've used the word, there's a section defined for cheating, which explains what amounts to cheating. That is the purpose of each section of law. It tells you the provisos, it tells you what is the offense, it gives you a narration, and it gives you case laws, which, of course, during the course of your time, you'll study. Section 464 IPC is making a false document. This amounts to forgery, under section 467. And using that forged document as genuine makes the offense even graver under section 471 of the IPC. And then 477A was added for falsification of accounts. There are many companies, like, for example, you heard of Ramalinga Raju, he created false accounts. He had a server in which he had shown employees which don't exist, showing revenue which was never accrued, showing expenditure through payment of salaries to these persons who don't exist. So they falsified their accounts. Another very glaring example of falsification of accounts is, which again, I feel the pressure of every quarterly financial figures, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, it is almost acts as a flashpoint and for the companies to fudge their figures, because if the financial profits go down even in one quarter, it has a snowballing effect on their share prices in the stock market and it brings them tumbling down, which will result into losses of millions, even billions of dollars, right? So we need to do some rethinking on the falsification of accounts. And then, of course, Section 31D of the POCA is the Prevention of Corruption Act. We had one act in 1947, right? And, when the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, also the CBI was set up, we had one act there. It has been modified, brought up to 1988. And in 2018, there have been very, very significant amendments to the Prevention of Corruption Act. So I think I'll not bog you down with further details. The next slide, please. Yeah. I think the idea was to give you an overview. I have given you an overview, or at least tried to give you one. And I'll be too glad to take on any questions that you have.
Yes, sir. I'm having one question.
Sir, what is the reason for the delay in frauds detection?
Beg your pardon? What is the reason for the delay in fraud detection? Is
Yes,
that
sir.
the question? Yeah. You see, as I said, it is not very easy. For example, in one case of the Bank of Baroda that we were doing, you siphon off funds from somewhere and you do the layering of funds. There were 647 bank accounts, 43 banks, through which this is called the layering of funds, right? Now, you must have read in the newspapers that 2.5 lakh, or more related party, dummy companies through which you move your funds. Each company would be having about 250 dummy accounts or 250 or so related party transactions. To trace the movement from one to the other earlier was being done manually. Right, that would take nearly, now you can imagine 647 bank accounts. If you got to study the inflow and outflow, if you have to study the inflow and outflow of cash and then track it down through 43 banks, getting the documents, tracing these accounts is a very voluminous task. Now, technology and tools in the Bank of Baroda, you will be surprised. We did the same thing within 1 month for the government, right? So times have changed. It will change. It is now going to be, it's a very important question. Justice delayed, justice denied. In fact, we need to speed up investigations and we need to speed up trials also. And unless the trials are not speeded up, that is where people like you will form a very, very significant part of the criminal justice system. It takes a very long time for the lawyers and judges to understand also what is the offense committed. Even in the Harshad Mehta case, we were trying to say that money came here and there. He says that if money aaya, money chala gaya, phir aa gaya, to offense kya hua, right? So these are the things now where when the lawyers become educated like you, very, very good question. You're very, very aware of these things. That will make things a lot different. Does it answer your question satisfactorily?
Sir, as you talk about corporate fraud, sir, my question is how forensic accounting can be used as a tool to prevent corporate fraud, sir? As we all know, despite of having several law enforcement across countries, corporate fraud continues to occur. Even IT and ITs have came in bigger way to support the industries. Still fraud occurs. Where is the remedy then, sir?
Wonderful. Rishabh, I would like to pat you on the back for this particular thing. Now, the remedy lies in the fault itself. I've written a paper on corporate fraud, why the corporate frauds take place, right? The point is, if you look into each corporate fraud very carefully, you will find that the CEOs have transgressed their powers, unlimited powers, and even the chairman, even the second line of check, third line of check was given a go by. You know, when Nick Leeson was dealing with the Bearing Bank in Singapore, the chairman sitting somewhere else, you know, in England, said, this fellow is brilliant. You go by what he says. So the checks and balances were given a go by. All the CEOs, whether in World.com, Enron, Lehman Brothers, all of them, if you see their case study, which I have done in a research paper, all of them transgressed their powers, and it fell within the three corners of that fraud triangle: motivation, opportunity, and rationalization. And everybody seems to have fallen in line with them. The remedy lies in making sure that nobody has unbridled powers, or their powers and their sphere of work is not transgressed into the other's sphere of work. Don't give them unbridled powers. When they talk about CBI also giving autonomy and absolute freedom, we have never asked for it, because as a lawyer, you must know Lord Acton's principle: power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If the corporate CEOs, COOs, and the chief financial officers, if their powers are curtailed, what their brief is, what their line of duty is, the corporate frauds will definitely go off. Number one. Number two, the you know, when the corporates take a corporate loan, for example, Malia has taken 9,500 crores or something. What has been the role of the chartered accountants? They have certified that the loan from the banks are being utilized for the purposes for which it was sanctioned, knowing fully well that this loan has been diverted to foreign countries also, to foreign accounts, for purchasing of yachts, aircrafts, for Formula One. Now, those are dead assets where there is no hope of return. And that is where asset management comes in. And these are examples where the loans will never be repaid. Now, if you curtail these aspects, clipping of the wings of the person concerned, corporate frauds will definitely come down. And as I said, the last thing in the criminal justice system is the law should take its own course, and they should expedite the dispensation of justice. Now, Rajat Gupta, for example, you know, on the basis of a telephone call in India, it never happened, was convicted for several years. He was behind bars for 2 years, within a span of a year. Nick Leeson was convicted in 96. I think in 86, he did the fraud, and you know, he had completed a sentence also. He came out, he died of cancer later on. But that is what is very, very necessary. Quick convictions, proper, and the right tone at the top. That is what matters. Right tone at the top. Corruption will filter from the top to the bottom. The principle of leaching. I hope it answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Sir.
Thank you for enlightening us, sir.
Sir, namaste, sir.
Yeah, namaste.
Hello.
Rajni, yeah.
Ji, sir, why are not control?
Beg your pardon? Your speaker is muted, I think. There's a red mark, cross mark. Now it is unmuted. Now you can speak. Yeah, Rajneesh.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sir.
Is it Vicky Singh or Rajneesh?
Sir.
Now, two people have come in.
Sir.
Vicky Singh. Okay.
Sir, I have a question. There are lots of mobile app fraudsters are available in Play Store, and their server rooms are not in India. They are making people fools, and they are trying to provide some small loans, but and in this regard, they are accepting the data like private privacy types and जो डाटा रख लेते हैं लोगों का मोबाइल का, वो डाटा रखने के बाद सर उन लोगों को ब्लैकमेल करना शुरू करते हैं वो, ठीक है, और उनका सर्वर रूम तो भारत में है नहीं, सर्वर रूम कुछ का सर्वर रूम नाइजीरिया में है, कुछ का सर्वर रूम मतलब साउथ अफ्रीका टाइप में है। और वहां से वो लोगों का जो डाटा है, ऐप का परमिशन जिसको बोलते हैं, वो ऐप का परमिशन रखने के साथ साथ फोटो, पर्सनल फाइल्स वगैरह उसमें से वो स्टोर कर लेते हैं। और वो एक बहुत छोटा छोटा अमाउंट लोगों को देते हैं, और उस अमाउंट के एवज में उनको ब्लैकमेल करना, और साथ में उनके फैमिली को, उनके फैमिली फ्रेंड्स को, इन लोगों को ब्लैकमेल करना शुरू कर सकते हैं। सर, इनको कंट्रोल करने का कोई प्रोविजन है ही नहीं। कैसे इस टाइप के काम पे कैसे प्रोविजन, मतलब क्या क्या प्रोविजन लाया जा सकता है? क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो इसके अगेंस्ट में सुसाइड अटेम्प्ट कर चुके हैं। लगभग मुजफ्फरपुर कोर्ट के भी सर बहुत सारे ऐसे एडवोकेट्स हैं जो इसके विक्टिम हैं।
बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं आप विकी। और 2005 में हम लोग गए थे रिचमंड, वहां पर कॉन्फ्रेंस अटेंड करने के लिए बॉटनेट का। ये बॉटनेट अटैक्स जो आप कह रहे हैं, ये उस समय ये पता चला, इंडिया ने उसकी तैयारी तब तक शुरू ही नहीं की थी। पर ये जो बॉटनेट अटैक्स थे, थ्रू रिमोट कंप्यूटर्स, डिनायल ऑफ सर्विसेज, आपका कंप्यूटर स्लो कर देना, आपका डाटा हैक कर लेना, इंडस्ट्रियल एस्पिनेज, इसमें से द यंग बॉयज 14 to 16 ईयर, जो मैंने पहले भी कहा था कि जो बहक जाते हैं, स्पोर्ट्स कार खरीदना, his assets were about $50,000 in a span of 2 years, and the parents were very happy कि मेरा बच्चा इतना होनहार हो गया। उसके पास 30 सर्वर्स थे। अमेरिका का जो है वो टर्की में है, जैसे नाइजीरिया में आप कह रहे हैं, सब all over the world, and FBI has been going all over the world to get these. Our biggest problem is when it's a trans-border international crime. The accused, ये जो फ्रॉडस्टर्स हैं, उनको ये बहुत बड़ा लाभ मिल जाता है कि उन तक पहुंचने के लिए ज्योग्राफिकल बैरियर्स बहुत ही बड़ा एक मुद्दा है। अमेरिका तो अपना जा करके टीम भेज करके सब जगह अरेस्ट कर लेता है, पर यह सुविधा सभी देशों के पास नहीं है, और हमारे पास बिल्कुल नहीं है। सिर्फ
जो सर इंटरपोल के माध्यम से नहीं हो सकता?
इंटरपोल के थ्रू जाता है, पर पॉइंट ये है, इंटरपोल में भी हमारे बिहार कैडर के ही राजेश रंजन थे, जो अभी रिटायर किए हैं, yes, उनके पास लाखों पिटिशंस हैं। ये एक ग्लोबल फिनोमेना, द वॉल्यूम इज सो मच, इतना ज्यादा वॉल्यूम है कि एक एक चीज, और ये बड़ा टाइम कंज्यूमिंग होता है। माइक्रोसॉफ्ट के पास कम से कम 100 आदमी होंगे इस बॉटनेट के लिए, एम्प्लॉयड और वेरी हाई सैलरीज।
सर एक्चुअली मेरे पास जो है ना, लगभग 73 लोगों का FIR का रिपोर्ट है, और जिस रिपोर्ट में कॉल रिकॉर्डिंग्स, स्क्रीनशॉट्स है, जिसमें लोगों का कहना ये है, लेडीज लोग, इवन जो लेडीज लोग हैं वर्किंग क्लास, उनको 3-3 हजार रुपए के लिए उनको दिया जा रहा है, रेप कर देंगे तुम्हारे साथ, इस टाइप का धमकी। और जो लड़का उसमें मतलब वो रिकवरी के लिए फोन करता है, जब उसको फोन किया गया और उससे बातचीत की गई, तो उससे बातचीत करने पे पता चला, वो लड़का कहता है कि भैया हम लोग खुद ट्रैप्ड हैं इसमें, हम लोगों का पूरा डाटा रखा हुआ है, और लॉकडाउन में जॉब चली गई है, और इसके वजह से हम लोग इस चीज के इसमें फंसे हुए हैं, और हम लोगों का खुद का डाटा रखा हुआ है, इसलिए हम लोग यहाँ से निकल नहीं पा रहे हैं। लेडीज लोगों को रेप।
सही कह रहे हैं विकी, बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं। द आइडिया इज कि दिस इज टू गिव यू एन ओवरव्यू। जो आप जिस बात की साइबर फ्रॉड की बात कर रहे हैं, ये कम से कम 4-5 लेक्चर्स का ये होगा, इतना बड़ा क्राइम है। और अनफॉर्चुनेटली बिहार में अभी भी एक स्पेशलाइज्ड साइबर सेल या इकोनॉमिक ऑफेंसेस विंग बना हुआ है, बट वो उतना कारगर नहीं है जितना कि फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग स्टेट्स। अभी 2 दिन पहले ही हम लोगों ने एक FIR कराया है विद द मुंबई पुलिस साइबर सेल अगेंस्ट फेसबुक। आज भी आपने अगर न्यूज देखा होगा, फेसबुक का जो फ्रॉड आ रहा है ऑन व्हाट्सएप एज वेल एज ऑन इंस्टाग्राम इज अमेजिंग। यू सी, दिस इज अ वेरी बिग चैलेंज, and ये एक this is the, I think, the biggest fraud of the century which is going to come up, biggest fraud of the century which is going to, and the biggest challenge which is going to come up. We can deal with these much later, but this is, ये आपने बहुत बड़ा एक मुद्दा उठाया है। पर सबसे पहले जागरूकता जो है करनी होगी with the Mumbai police also for opening up a cyber cell with specially trained persons अभी कर्नाटका में, चेन्नई में और मुंबई में उनके पास सॉफ्टवेयर भी है, दिल्ली में भी कुछ थोड़ा बहुत है, बट दे डोंट हैव द टेक्नोलॉजी, द टूल्स और द सॉफ्टवेयर to deal with these crimes. That is why this crime is thriving more and more. The sooner we wake up to this particular challenge, the better it will be. Right? So I think we'll take it up in detail in some other lectures on cyber fraud. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Good morning, sir. सर, इवन DND सर्विसेज जो हमारे टेलीकम्युनिकेशन का है वो अलाउ किया गया है, फिर भी हम लोगों को बहुत सारे पिटिशंस न्यूज में और कुछ दिन पहले NDTV पे भी दिखाया जा रहा था। DND करने के बावजूद लोगों को कॉल आते हैं, फ्रॉड्स आते हैं, उसके बाद उन लोगों के अकाउंट से पैसे चले जाते हैं कॉलिंग के माध्यम से भी, और कुछ ड्यूरेशन से ऐसा कुछ बताया जा रहा था कि कुछ इतने मिनट्स के बाद अगर आप बात करते हैं तो आपके मोबाइल से पैसे गायब हो जा रहे हैं।
Absolutely. The point is, देखिए जितने भी ये केसेस आए हैं, मैं इंडिविजुअल केसेस का स्टडी नहीं करूंगा, बट जितने भी ये ऐसे ये डिजिटल फ्रॉड्स आए हैं उसमें गलत कॉलर जो है को अकाउंट नंबर दे दिया जाता है, OTP वो जनरेट करते हैं, उनको OTP बता दिया जाता है, अपने डिजिटल कार्ड के डिटेल्स दे दिए जाते हैं और तब वो उसमें फंस जाते हैं। अब ये जो जैसे जामतारा, इसीलिए मैंने कहा है कि सबको रेकमेंड कर रहा हूँ कि जामतारा जो सीरियल है ऑन नेटफ्लिक्स,
ये सर वेब सीरीज
झारखंड का ही है वो
सर, वेब सीरीज
इट इज बेस्ड
नेटफ्लिक्स का है सर।
यस
सर, जामताड़ा वेब सीरीज बेस्ड ऑन झारखंड।
एब्सोल्युटली, दैट इज व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इवन इन पटना, द सेम थिंग वी डिटेक्टेड। आपको मैंने कहा ना, डोमिनोज का एग्जांपल दिया जहां हम वेबसाइट्स वगैरह ये कर रहे हैं, राइट। दी प्रिंसिपल इज कि किसी भी सोर्स को किसी भी हालत में अपना बैंक अकाउंट नंबर, अपना नाम, अपना ये CVV नंबर, अपना OTP नंबर किसी के साथ नहीं शेयर करना है। बैंक्स थक गए हैं करते करते, और आज परसों ही हमारी जो मेड सर्वेंट है उसके बेटे ने उसको उसका डेबिट हो गया 3,000 का। ही बॉट अप अ स्कीम, fraudulent scheme with Mahindra Holidays. Mahindra Holidays की किसी ने वेबसाइट हैक करके वो बनाई है, उसमें से इसका 3,000 रुपया निकाल दिया मेड से। इट्स अ वेरी बिग अमाउंट फॉर देम। सो द पॉइंट इज, जब उससे पूछा गया यही चीजें उसने शेयर करनी। द थंब रूल इज नेवर शेयर योर डिटेल्स विद एनीवन। वो बैंकर अगर है भी, जेन्युइन भी है, तब भी मत करिए। You ring up the bank again, find out from the website whether that person is an employee or not, what is his telephone number, and give him a call and then talk to him. पर वैसे मत बन जाइए। ये चीजों के लिए सिर्फ एक इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग एजेंसी से हेल्प मिल जाए संभव नहीं है, आपको अपने सावधानी करनी होगी और अपनी जानकारी। इसीलिए ये फाइनेंशियल फ्रॉड्स का जो है एक ओवरव्यू दिया है, ताकि हर एक आदमी जानकार बने और सावधानी बरते। राइट
सर,
This is Ashutosh.
सर
नाउ इज दैट सुमन पांडे और समवन एल्स?
सर, बोल रहे थे कि यदि किसी व्यक्ति का पैसा गायब हो जाता है 10,000 15,000 रुपया, तो देखते हैं कि वो ना कोर्ट में जाता ना थाना में रिपोर्ट करता। उसे लगता है कि यदि हम 15,000 रुपया पैसा गायब हो गया है तो फिर हमको थाना वकील को देना पड़ेगा, तो उसी कारण भी रिपोर्ट नहीं लिखा जाता है। ऐसा मामला बहुत सा देखते हैं कि छोड़ दो यार, 10,000 रुपया गायब हो गया तो छोड़ देते हैं, लेकिन ऐसा बहुत से लोग होते हैं। तो इस पर कोई कार्रवाई होती है कि नहीं सर?
देखिए, बहुत बढ़िया आपने प्रश्न पूछा है। बैंक्स भी कहते हैं कि अगर 2-3 दिन के अंदर अंदर आप रिपोर्ट कर दें तो वो ट्रांजैक्शन को रिवर्स कर देंगे, चाहे उसके ऊपर क्वेश्चन मार्क लगाएं, और वो अपने इन्वेस्टिगेशन फिर करेंगे। सो दोनों काम कर देना चाहिए। कंप्लेंट चाहे FIR हो नहीं हो, पर अपने नियरेस्ट थाने में ये कंप्लेंट कर दीजिएगा और बैंक को अवश्य कंप्लेंट दीजिएगा। RBI का गाइडलाइंस है कि वो जो ट्रांजैक्शन जिसकी वजह से आपके ऊपर, आपके अकाउंट में से फ्रॉडुलेंट एक्टिविटी होगी, वो पैसा आपका रिवर्स करके आपके खाते में वापस आएगा, और वो फिर बैंक इन्वेस्टिगेशन फर्दर करता है कि आपका क्लेम कहां तक जेन्युइन है, कहां तक फॉल्स है। इसको भी, इस फैसिलिटी को भी, रिवर्सल ऑफ दिस थिंग को भी लोग मिसयूज कर रहे हैं, बट देन दी ओनर्स लाइज ऑन द बैंक, वो जिम्मेदारी बैंक की हो जाती है। तो ये जरूर करना चाहिए दोनों तरफ। कंप्लेंट आप दर्ज कर दिए, एफआईआर हो नहीं हो, कंप्लेंट रजिस्टर करके उसका रिसीट ले लीजिएगा और वही लगा करके बैंक को भी दे दीजिएगा, जरूर आपको कुछ ना कुछ राहत मिलेगी। इट विल बी बेटर देन डूइंग नथिंग।
हेलो
सर।
हाँ सर। सर लेकिन बैंक जो है, हाँ ये सर, लेकिन बैंक जो है सर कोई इंटरेस्ट तो लेती नहीं है। हम लोग तो कई बार देखते हैं कि मतलब 50,000 80,000 तक ये ट्रांजेक्शन हो गया, मतलब निकल गया पैसा, लेकिन बैंक जो है उस पर तो कोई एक्शन लेती ही नहीं है। बोलती है कि आप जिस एटीएम से निकला है वहां से आप पता करो, या फिर ऊपर देखते हैं, करते हैं, इस तरह से ये मतलब मामला
के निकल जाती है कि हम कुछ नहीं कर पाएंगे।
बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं आप, बिल्कुल आप बिल्कुल ठीक कर रहे हैं, ये प्रॉब्लम है। पर उसमें जो है थोड़ा सा दौड़ धूप करके रेज द लेवल। अगर ब्रांच से नहीं मिलता है तो गो टू द रीजनल ऑफिस, गो टू द जोनल ऑफिस, इसको छोड़िए नहीं। और आपके कॉलेज में कई इन्फ्लुएंशियल आदमी हैं, उनके थ्रू ये करिए, पुट द प्रेशर ऑन द बैंक। ये इसको छोड़िए मत आसानी से, मेहनत जरूर लगती है। नो गेन विदाउट पेन, गो थ्रू दैट। हम लोग जल्दी जल्दी छोड़ देते हैं, छोड़ना नहीं है।
इवन सर बैंकिंग लोकपाल भी है,
बैंकिंग वाले विल बी अ पार्टी टू इट। यू नो, मैं अनफॉर्चुनेटली दैट्स व्हाट माय एक्सपीरियंस इज। मोर ऑफन देन नॉट द बैंक एम्प्लॉइज कोई ना कोई मिला रहता है उसमें।
सर मैंने भी इस टाइप का फेस किया है प्रॉब्लम। मैंने अकाउंट खुलवाया, उसके वेरी नेक्स्ट डे मेरे पास कॉल आ गया, जो मैंने अकाउंट में अपडेट किया था नंबर, उस पे कॉल आ गया मेरे पास कि आप ओटीपी एक बताओ। मैंने नहीं दिया उनको, बट पता नहीं मेरा नंबर उनके पास कैसे गया, जबकि मैंने तो अपडेट बैंक में किया था।
You see, that is the problem even in data privacy
कनेक्ट रहता है ना।
ये iCloud में भी आ जाता है, कहीं आप लोगों ने iCloud में डाल दिया होगा, कहीं शेयरिंग में डाल दिया हो। अब देखिए, आप अपने मोबाइल में देखते हैं कि रोज आपका पर्सनल डाटा का वो फोटोग्राफ्स कहीं देख लीजिए, फॉर एग्जांपल वो वीडियो बना के आपको भेज देता है। अब उसके बाद 2012 2013 की कहां से फोटोग्राफ आ गई? आवर डाटा इज बीइंग वेरी बैडली कॉम्प्रोमाइज्ड। इसलिए बी वेरी केयरफुल ऑफ शेयरिंग योर डाटा ऑन इंस्टाग्राम, व्हाट्सएप, on the websites and all. ये फेसबुक में हम लोग इतना जाते हैं, फेसबुक में इतना शेयर करते हैं। फेसबुक, you know, the Federal Trade Commission is falling very heavily on Facebook now, especially after they bought up Instagram and they bought WhatsApp also. This is a very big source of compromise of your personal data. Be very careful about it. आपने नहीं दिया OTP, अच्छा किया।
सर हेलो
सर हेल्प सर। हेलो
या सुमन, रजनीश
सर बोल रहे थे कि कहीं ना कहीं सर साइबर क्राइम होता है, तो उसमें हम लोग कहीं ना कहीं मिले होते हैं। कहीं जैसे कि जब कोई मैसेज आता है प्ले स्टोर में, डाउनलोड करते हैं तो बिन देखे एलो 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 करते चल जाते हैं बिन पढ़े ही। तो कहीं ना कहीं सर वहां पर मेरा भी तो गलती है ना, ये सब पर ध्यान भी नहीं देते हैं। और कोई भी प्ले स्टोर डाउनलोड करती है, सब ईमेल आईडी वगैरह, मोबाइल फोन, ये सब ढूंढता है। तो ऑटोमेटिक हम उसको दे रहे हैं सर, तो वो तो कहीं ना कहीं करबे नहीं करेगा सर साइबर क्राइम।
एब्सोल्युटली। तो इसीलिए कह रहे हैं कि जो स्पैम मेल्स हैं, मैसेजेस हैं, अननोन नंबर से कॉल्स हैं, बिल्कुल नहीं लेना है।
सर कहीं कहीं तो देखा गया है कि आधार कार्ड आपका है, आपके आधार कार्ड से दूसरे आदमी का अकाउंट चल रहा है, एक ही नाम से 3-3 अकाउंट चालू कर दिया जाता है, उसमें फ्रॉडिंग होती है।
ये जो बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा का हम लोगों ने केस किया है
जी, उसमें
59 अकाउंट्स थे, जिसमें कि रिक्शा पुलर्स, मजदूर वगैरह के सबके पैन कार्ड यूज किए गए
जी।
और आप सोचेंगे कि बैंक ने क्यों नहीं डिटेक्ट किया। हम लोगों ने यही कहा कि भाई पैन कार्ड पे जो तस्वीर है, पैन कार्ड पे जो नंबर है, नेम है, और पैन कार्ड पे जो सिग्नेचर है, वो आपके प्रोप्राइटर के केवाईसी डिटेल्स के साथ मिल ही रहे हैं, और तब भी आपने वो पैन कार्ड क्यों एक्सेप्ट कर लिया? दैट्स अ प्रॉब्लम। बड़े बड़े जाली आधार कार्ड और पैन कार्ड नंबर ये आ रहे हैं इनटू द, दीज आर वेरी मेजर इश्यूज।
सर एक्चुअली हेलो सर अभी वो पेफोन एंड पेटीएम वगैरह भी जो चल रहे हैं उस पे भी सर फ्रॉडिंग हो रहा है। उस पे भी फ्रॉडिंग हो रहा है। वो क्या होता है कि सर पेमेंट के लिए बोला जाता है कि आप पेमेंट मैं पेमेंट कर रहा हूँ, कोई क्लाइंट होता है जो पेमेंट करने के लिए तो एक लिंक शेयर करते हैं जस्ट फॉर बोलते हैं कि जस्ट मैं चेक करने के लिए 1 रुपीज और 2 रुपीज सेंड कर रहा हूँ, आप उन्हें लिंक को एक्सेप्ट करें। और जैसे ही लिंक एक्सेप्ट किया जाता है इधर से वो पूरे पैसे
Honorable Mr. S.K. Mishra, President of the College, our Secretary, Dr. Mrs. Ujjwala Mishra, our distinguished guest speaker, Mr. Uday Shankar Dutt, IPS, Mr. K.K.N. Tiwari, Principal, Mr. Braj Mohan Azad, Vice Principal, dear teachers, staff, and students. First of all, I give thanks to our distinguished guest speaker, Mr. Uday Shankar Datta sir, for giving your valuable time and also giving us opportunity for delivering lecture on the topic emerging trends of financial frauds. We are very fortunate to have your valuable lecture on the topic, which was so extensive, informative, and beneficial, particularly to the students of law and all of us, as this topic has thrown light on the current trend on economic offenses and different scams nowadays taking place in the various sectors like banking frauds, scams in medical admission, prisons, corporate frauds, loan frauds, etc. We are also fortunate to have cooperation and encouragement of our President and Secretary in arranging such programs to increase our knowledge, which is also beneficial to our law students. We are thankful to our President, Secretary, our teachers, staff, and students for their sincere cooperation. Once again, many thanks to all of you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hello.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure interacting with all of you. And thanks for the opportunity once again. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, sir. Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.